All right, Christy, should we go ahead and get started?
Hello. Yes, we should. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to Practical Ways to Tell Stories.
Yes, we are super excited to talk to you today about practical ways to tell stories and strengthen one of your most powerful tools. Um, whether you have oversee communications, lead teams, or interact directly with your community, your ability to tell a meaningful story has a direct impact on how you build trust with your community. Steve Jobs has famously said one of the most powerful people in the world is a storyteller. And in the public sector, that's especially true because the stories that we tell help shape perceptions, build transparency, and ultimately build confidence and trust in your organization. But first, we're going to introduce ourselves. Christy, do you want to go ahead and kick us off?
Sure. So, my name is Christy Sarasco. I'm the creative director at the Impact Group, and I get to tell stories every day visually through graphic design, photos, messaging, and creative problem solving. And my husband would like to joke that I add extra details to my stories for dramatic effect. And while he's probably right, in communications, it's not about embellishing, it's about choosing the details that help people connect with your story.
Yes, I love that. Um, um, I'm Caitlin Witzberger. I'm an accountant and the manager of Impact Group Marketing at the Impact Group. Um, and my day-to-day role at the Impact Group is working directly with clients to help them build a strategy that tells their story. So Christy takes care of the visuals and I take care of the words. Um, and it's honestly one of my favorite parts of the job is finding how the puzzle pieces all connect together. And when we think about storytelling, it isn't just a communications tactic, um, but a leadership tool. And one of those most powerful examples is from President Reagan's State of the Union address in 1982. So, who is Lenny Skutnik? He was just an ordinary citizen that 2 weeks before Reagan's State of the Union address jumped into the freezing Potomac River after Air Florida Flight 90 crashed into the Potomac to save one of the passengers, Priscilla Tirado. And during Reagan's State of the Union address, he addressed Lenny Skutnik in the audience and used his story to highlight courage, resilience, and the best of the American spirit. And that moment was so impactful that it changed the way that presidents have given their State of the Union addresses since then. It introduced this concept of the Skutnik, where presidents use real people to highlight and humanize public policy. This moment was so important, and great stories help you build trust, strengthen relationships, and humanize your organization because the facts, the information aren't what connect us as people. It's the stories and the authentic moments and the emotions behind it all. Um, Reagan didn't talk abstractly about heroism. He showed it with Lenny Skutnik's story. And in the public sector, there are so many of those moments that happen every single day in your organization. And the challenge for us is just seeing them, noticing them, and then sharing them. This here on this slide is a great example. Andrea Gribble, the owner of Social School for EDU, has shared this in one of her communications. And it's this wonderful story of a custodian who's worked in a school district for a very long time, and his connection to each one of these graduating seniors. So we'll watch it here together.
Class, what is this time?
Yes, class. 32 years and prep is the best.
That's honestly one of my favorite videos to watch. You can really just feel that emotion and that connection to their story.
Yeah, I love that. And it just, you feel that human component of the people that make the impact within your organization. So we're going to do a quick warm up before we dive in. Think about the last piece of communication that you shared on social media, in a newsletter, or in a marketing piece. Did it simply report information, or did it tell a story in the way that Reagan did, spotlighting the human experience behind the work? This brings us to an important distinction and one that changes everything about how your message lands. So I mentioned reporting versus storytelling. Reporting says what happened, storytelling says why it matters. So if you read the example on the screen, the team had a meeting today. Very simple, basic, it's just the facts. If you're telling a story, our team came together this morning to share ideas, solve problems, and celebrate progress. And the energy in the room was contagious. Now, with all of those keywords, you feel connected in some way to that moment and are grateful that that meeting occurred. So it's the same event, but one builds connection. So, why stories stick? Our brains are wired for stories. Research shows that stories activate more neural pathways than facts alone. And the three reasons that that does that is because stories engage emotion, they are more memorable, and they make complex work relatable. This is really key in the public sector. You're often explaining processes, approvals, timelines, and systems. And storytelling turns what can often be complex or dry into clear, engaging moments that you can connect with. So, when you're in doubt, when you're preparing information, you can dramatically improve any piece of communication by applying the 3 C's. So, the 3 C's are clear, concise, compelling. So, as you're preparing a piece of content, you would take a step back and ask if these all reach these 3 C's. One, is it one main point? No jargon. Does the audience immediately understand your message? 2, is it concise? Short and scannable. People can spend seconds, not minutes. It avoids fluff. You can have a strong visual paired with a simple caption and have a really meaningful piece of content. And third, is it compelling? Is it human centered? Why should anyone care about what you're trying to tell? The 3 C's framework works for press releases, leadership updates, community emails, social posts, really anything that you're sharing. So if you can check all 3 of these boxes, you're not just sharing information, you're inspiring connection.
Yeah, Christy, what I love about this is it reminds me a lot of our 333 message framework. And when we write messages and we talk about launching a big campaign, we like to use that to kind of frame the story. Because as Tom Speaks will tell you, you get about 3 seconds for 80% of those people to understand your message. And beyond that, about 15% will give you 30 seconds. So you might get a couple sentences in for that message to land. And then the last 5% of those people are probably the ones that are going to take the deep dive into your message. But the vast majority of the people that we talk to are only going to give you a couple of seconds to understand deeply what you're trying to say. So when we talk about making storytelling sustainable, it's important to remember that it doesn't have to be perfect, but we want it to be consistent because that consistency is what helps you build trust over time. You don't have to have a constant flow of new content. You can repurpose and reshare and reuse your stories to help build a rhythm. And building a content calendar is a really helpful tool to help you do that. And it's not about using that content calendar to share more, but instead to share with purpose and intentionality. Every post, every story, Every image is a very small window into the work that you're doing every day. And when you're able to share those stories consistently and intentionally, you really help build a broader, really powerful story about your organization that helps people feel connected to you, proud and confident in the work that you're doing in your organization. Here's a helpful tool to kind of help you frame that. The content planning checklist uses 6 kind of areas of thought for when you're building a story to help you think about and frame the way that you are sharing your story. So clarity, is your message clear? Can you understand it in that 3 to 5 seconds? What visuals are you using? Do your visuals show smiling faces and people and emotions? We love to say, particularly about social media, that it's social and people want to see people. Does your tone feel warm, positive, and authentic? It can be really hard sometimes in the public sector to step outside of that formality. But when used appropriately, authentic, even emotional moments are really powerful ways to build trust. When something really hard happens, people relate to and understand when you're feeling how hard that moment is with you. Connection. Why should your community care? Engagement. Do you have a call to action? What do you want people to do with the information that you're sharing? And then consistency. Does it align with your voice and your organization's brand?
Yeah, and even looking back at that checklist, Caitlin, it really takes practice to combine all of these elements to create the story. It's not something that happens instantly. You can even work on a story and try to go down this checklist and make sure that you're doing each one. But really, it's about your community and the feedback from the community and collaborating with your team to try and see like what really lands, what are people engaging with, because it can really take a while to establish your voice. So it just helps to really know that these aren't things that just happen instantly. It really takes a while to put all of these into practice on a daily basis.
Yeah, Chrissy, I think it would be great too if you could talk about how branding is such an important point in visual storytelling.
Absolutely. I'm very passionate about branding. Your brand is not just your logo. So, one of the first things that we do when we work with any of our clients are we take a look at your colors, your fonts, your brand guideline. Being consistent is so important in putting out all of your pieces so that it makes you feel trusted. If someone sees something that comes across their feed or an email, they instantly can relate to it because they know that, okay, this is from them. Um, your brand is not just your look. While it's perfect to have a brand guide and have something to follow so that you look clean and professional and consistent, your brand is really your voice. And it's something that people know instantly about you, your reputation. They know this to be true about you. So really building a strong brand and staying true to your brand is one of the most essential components as you begin your storytelling process. So.
Yeah, thanks, Chrissy. I think a lot about our rebranding process with the Impact Group when you talk about those components and how we spent so much time beyond just the colors and the logos, but thinking about how we build our messaging and those kind of key words and phrases that we use over time, and even how that's represented and shared over our channels.
Actually, if I can, Christy, would you talk a little bit about how, I mean, a brand is foundational for trust, and
Mhm.
and trust in its turn is in foundational for communication. If you don't have good trust, communication doesn't exist. So, how, in your experience, and Caitlin as well, how does having a consistent, well formulated brand help with a sense of trust?
Yeah, I mean, and so just like, I mean, it's really built over time. And that's essentially the goal in any piece of communication and is trust and connection. And so you really want your constituents, your community, whomever your main audience is, to really be able to connect with what you're doing. And the reason that storytelling, it's like, you know, often facts can be so dry and boring. And in a world where we are inundated with information and so much coming at us digitally, it's almost impossible to keep up. So you want to stand out. And one way to do that is just with, again, that human connection, your brand, your humans, your staff, your people, that's your brand too. And I think that's one of the most important components is really spotlighting who those people are in your organization. Those are really the moments where you're building that trust through your brand and through your people.
Yeah, I think particularly when we talk about social media, that's so true. It's like one of the most powerful tools that we have at our disposal to share those stories. And the way that people engage on social media isn't necessarily with the update that says, thank you so much to our custodians, but rather like that video, the custodian and showing his relationship with students and how important it is for staff stability and just school environment that those relationships exist. And any way that we can find to bring the story from like a high level to that very personal story is always more powerful. And it can be challenging, and you sometimes have to reframe the way that you think about your message and the way that you want to share something. But even when we think about like levy communications and things that aren't necessarily super exciting, but really informational, is there a way to share how with maybe the last levy you were able to put new visitor bleachers in at the stadium and how impactful that was for your community because the old ones were really broken and looked really terrible. It's those types of things that we can use even in the driest moments to help tell stronger and more powerful stories.
Yeah. So, sort of bringing this all together here. Earlier, I asked you to think about a recent update that you might have shared. And if you have something in mind that you shared via social media or email or any type of marketing piece, I wanted to know if it grabbed attention. Did people engage in it? Did people stop scrolling? I think that's one of the most challenging things when you're trying to share any piece of communications. Sometimes when you're looking around, almost what this is a part of is training yourself. Caitlin, you sort of mentioned this about to see those moments,
Mhm.
to see when you can make that connection, to when you can turn it from being a fact to this is a moment I can tell a story about something. Does it celebrate people, not just announce information? And does it show the heart of your organization? So I think combined with those three C's, um, the content planning checklist that we had shared, and pausing to ask these questions, you're going to be sharing meaningful content, meaningful stories that are going to get your community to actually open your emails, to actually visit your website, to stop scrolling and engage with the things that you're sharing on social media. So all of these tools eventually come together to create a really, really incredible means for storytelling.
They really do. And one tool that I like to use when I am writing or thinking about how I'm going to share a story, I just ask myself one question. Um, what do I want someone, what's the one thing, not five things, one thing that I want someone to know after they read this or they see this? Because I think it happens to all of us. We start writing or we start creating something, and it becomes five different things or seven different things, or there's all these details that kind of start to get lost and can get muddy. But when we can write something clearly and provide that clarity by answering what's that one thing, it really does help shape a clearer and more understanding information and story.
Yeah. And even providing that moment to ask more questions, to provide a call to action, to really you want that feedback. You want to know, is this landing well? Is it understandable? Is it clear and concise and compelling? So providing that space within any piece of content for someone to easily connect with you to learn more truly. It's not just a learn more here. Is it the use of a QR code or an easy way to call or email or ask additional information on the topic that you're sharing about?
Yeah, that's great advice. Okay, so as we wrap up today, we challenge you to set one goal for yourself, one goal for your next piece of content. We talked about so much today and so many different tips and different ways to tell stories. But it's these small moments over time that help transform your communications. And so if you can take one thing from the information that we shared today and put it in practice, maybe write it down. I think when you write down a goal, you're more likely to achieve that goal. So write down your goal, take that tip, and see how you can apply it to your day-to-day work. It might be starting to use the 3 Cs and asking yourself, is this clear? Is it compelling? Is it concise? Or maybe it's taking some report or something really information fact focus and trying to find a human-centered angle to tell that same story. Or maybe, you start a meeting with a story instead of jumping right into those agenda details. There's a lot of different ways to start integrating that story. And those small shifts really make a big impact.
Yeah. It's funny too, because I was like, should I share about how my husband always teases me about my stories are completely different when I say it to one person or then another? And I'm like, well, you know what? I bet people on this call, they can relate to that as someone in their life teasing them about something, but it does make for a better story. I'm always like, well, I'm trying to connect the person that I'm telling the story to. It makes it a lot more fun than just, sharing, I guess, what basically happens.
Yeah, I always think about Phil Herman, one of our partners at the Impact Group, was superintendent at Hudson City Schools, and I worked there for a time, and our overlapped. And my favorite day of the entire school year was opening day. And the biggest part of that was because Phil would get on stage, and instead of giving, it's always about the important details and what we need to know for the upcoming school year. But instead of like jumping right into it and saying, okay, this is what you need to know. Here's the details. This is the training that you're going to have, and kind of going down that list of things. He always started with a story. It was about his family or something that happened over the summer. Something so relatable, and authentic, that, he had us right there. We were so engaged. And then when he connected that story to his presentation, we were right there following along the entire time.
Yeah.
And it was really just that connection, that authentic moment that kept us engaged and honestly made it one of my favorite days of the year.
And the personal stories those are the things that really come to mind when you're trying to explain even a process or tools that you can use. You're almost proving like why the tools work. I
Right.
really think about like specific stories that when you connect those pieces together, it's that human component. Um, and I just love, I was thinking about as I'm looking at the setting a goal for your next piece of content. We I had some other notes from things that Caitlin and I were working on, but it's writing a stronger caption. And sometimes it's really hard to come up with those captions. You'll see we have a lot of other webinars and videos available for you to check out on our Digital Leadership Academy. And one of those is the use of AI. And we won't dive into AI today because it is such a beast and we don't have all that much time left. But there are incredible tools out there, and we have a presentation that shows you how to use those tools. But one of those is writing a stronger caption. And like I said, being aware of your surroundings and capturing a candid photo, and sharing a story about that celebrates someone who's usually behind the scenes. We love all of these different components, and anything you can do to connect a person to a piece of content, you're going to have a win-win.
If I could
Yeah.
ask Caitlin and Christy, what do you think's holding people back from doing this? Because this on a call like this is very intuitive. Everybody's saying, sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the newsletter they send out is dry as toast, and it doesn't. So, I think a lot of folks with their organizations, communication sometimes becomes a check the box. Did we send a newsletter? Absolutely. Did anybody read it? Nope. But we sent the newsletter. Well, what's the point? So then, you guys, what's holding people back? Do you think? Why? Because this seems like this makes sense. And if it makes sense, why don't more people do it? Because honest to gosh, well-written stories, it's kind of a rare thing. It's you see the dry fact stuff all the time. Why don't more people do this?
Yeah, that's a great call, Tom.
Yeah.
And I think because it's harder, it's really, it's easy to share that information because it's the information and it doesn't change. I think when you are trying to tell a story, you have to be more purposeful. You have to be more intentional. You have to go out sometimes and look for those stories, or find those moments. Um, and that's why content planning and being strategic in how you tell those stories is so important. Because if you're not setting up that story with that intentionality, it's so easy to fall back into that. Here's the information and check the box and it's sent and done. Um, if you aren't saying, I need to go out and, in a school, grab some pictures in this classroom and tell the story of what the students are doing, or saying, I need to call this person in this department, and interview them about some things that are happening, to hear those personal stories. I think, yeah, it takes more intention, more purpose, to really find those moments, to be able to share them.
Hmm. Yeah, when you asked the question, Tom, in all caps across my brain came intentionality.
Yeah.
And Caitlin, you mentioned that a couple times. It really does take that intentional planning and thoughtfulness. And what I was thinking is a good practice might be to look back at your previous communications. We'll be able to share a few of these tools or checklists with you, maybe in a follow-up email after the webinar. But I would say do this with your team. Critique. Look at your social media from a whole. Look at your emails. A lot of things that I see can be very content heavy and hard to relate to. You put out a newsletter and it just has a lot of content, but does it have things that grab attention and connect people? So that's what I would say. Definitely look back at your previous communications. That's almost one of the best ways to move forward is to reflect and look back at what you've done and really judge it together and think about ways to improve it. Especially, I mean, this is one of the best times of the year to start fresh. 2026 could be the best year for you for the most impactful communications from your organization.
Yeah. So we have a few minutes. If anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute or drop them in the chat. We are happy to answer them. And if there aren't any questions, Tom Speaks is going to share with us a little bit about the heart of the impact group, which we call the high impact model.
Yeah, just very quickly here. I mean, at the end of the day, something we call a high impact organization, it's got three things. It's got a plan. What's your strategic plan? Where are you going? Do your folks know where you're going? Do the people you serve know where you're going? If you don't know where you're going, you're in a pickle. Communications. Does your staff know what you're all about? Does your community know what you're all about? It takes a lot of work to really tell your story. And the last is culture. People see culture a lot of times as like this hippy dippy side thing. Man, if your culture is off, communication is bad, things don't work, people, it's just bad. So we found that strategic planning, communications, and culture, where those three elements come together, that's when your organization's really cooking. That's when you have a high impact organization. So gosh, if anybody on this call, kind of a shameless plug, any strategic planning needs, any communication needs with your staff or with the community, or anything to make a good culture better, or sometimes a rocky culture good, we'd be honored to help.
And I'm going to give one more quick shameless plug. Part of our culture development is appreciology. And I invite you to go to our website and learn more about Appreciology. And we have just put out our revised second edition of the book Appreciology. And you want to talk about storytelling and connecting really, really great facts and truths with stories. The partners at the Impact Group, Tom Speaks, Phil Herman, and Dr. Greg, they really provided a tool to share stories and learn actionable ways to put a culture of appreciation in place in your organization. So go to our website and check out all these great things that we have to share with you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. If there aren't any questions, we are done for the day. So I hope that you found something useful that you can apply today, and thanks for joining us.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.